master's programs in the original 7 programs, and we have just got resource verification for PhD programs. We have about 37 laboratories, fully functional laboratories. I doubt if you will have so many in any of the other universities. I don't know in the other countries, but at least in Nigeria. It's not just space laboratories. These are fully furnished, functional laboratories. And we've won laurels all over the world. I'm sure you have visited our transit center where we display some of the few things that we are making, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because when you go through the labs, especially, you even see the current students' projects that we are going to be exhibited soon. And besides the 37 laboratories, we have a particular, we always call it 37+1. The one is for development of female engineers, whereby we believe that a female engineer is a unique breed. They have to get married one day. When they get married, they are supposed to also know a few things here and there. African wives must know a few things. Besides that, we've developed what we call concept of mobile engineering, whereby if they are married and their husband is not in the same place, they can move with their husband and start whatever factories they want to do on their own. In the College of Engineering here, following the policy of the founder here, we do not just train in theory. We imbibe a lot of practicals and a lot of professional development. Our students go on the usual student work experience scheme, but they also train in so many other areas that earn them professional qualifications. And we focus a lot on functional engineering education rather than just the regular theoretical concepts alone. And we also have a few programs that are recognized internationally. We won several prizes, both abroad on the world map and also in Nigeria. We came first in many of the competitions, in some cases first, second, and third. And this college has been known by the president of Nigerian Society of Engineers to be a template for engineering education in Nigeria.
Abuad Farms covers a huge expanse of land measuring over 1,500 hectares, consisting of over 1 million trees. Cash crops, feed crops such as pawpaw, cassava, mango, moringa, and the likes. Also, the animal husbandry section consists of a fishery, snailry, and a piggery. The farm also accommodates the wood processing factory and a feed mill production factory. No wonder a one-time Federal Minister of Agriculture described Abuad Farms as the best he has ever seen in Nigeria.
The Department of Agriculture goes to punctuate what Baba has in mind, the founder. We're going to the farm. The farm occupies more than 10,000 hectares of land with crops, fisheries, other livestock, moringa plants, and other things. You get to see them there. Any university that has no impact on the local environment. It's not what's being called a university. Now, agriculture, our impact should be, first of all, training students, training graduates of agriculture. Then the products of the farm, which you get to know, we too have inputs there, must impact the life of the community. Now we have aquaculture, that fishery aspect. You will get to see many fish ponds on the main station, and then there's another area outside this place where we have more fish ponds. So our fish products get as far as to Abuja. They also service the state and other states down south. We have the poultry unit. Now, customers do not only come from the town. We bring our products closer to people in town. So by the gate, we have a shop there where we showcase our products. We sell eggs. We also have a piggery unit. So we also sell pork. We sell moringa products. We sell fruits. We make mango juice. You see our mango trees. You cannot just eat the fruits raw. So we've gone beyond that. We have a processing unit, processed into juice and canned. We sell outside the state, within the state, and at the gate you have samples of this. People are coming in to buy. So our impact is felt there. We have the potato chips, what they call the plantain chips. We have the fish meal. These are servicing the state and customers from other states. And of course, the people living within us. And we employ the local people. If you get to the farm, all the workers there are from the villages around. That means a lot in present day Nigeria. We are talking of unemployed labor. The university, the farm employs thousands of workers in various categories. Well, the teachers are there. I have no business being here if there is no College of Agriculture. We're here to teach the students, produce graduates, and have impact on the farm.
I feel Babala University is unique because it goes very, very fast. Unexpectedly, it moves forward, and it moves forward with very good standards.
It's one of the best places whereby you can come and learn. And one thing I also like about the school is that it teaches you about life and everything that has to do with life in general. It just teaches you that life is not a bed of roses. You don't just come here today and sleep on your room, say, oh my God, I'm going to get a 4.5, and then you do nothing about it. This could just teaches you more about moral growth, how to roll with society, more about the rules and the regulations, how to uphold yourself as a proper citizen of our nation.
Upward has a multi-purpose ultra-modern teaching hospital which is equipped with high-tech facilities and state-of-the-art machines such as the MRIs, the bone densitometer, 3D breast examination machine, amazing dental facilities, state-of-the-art surgery machines, and many more. including wards you would be comfortable staying in.
The multi-system hospital arose as a result of the fact that we found the nationally agreed hospital, Federal Medical Center in Ido-Ekiti, has proved inadequate for the services for which we had an MOU. So the founder felt that he needed a brand new hospital to be able to aid in the teaching of medical students and doing research and all the other things that hospitals do. But we have a different concept in that the usual tertiary hospitals in this country were designed primarily for highfalutin, high-class kind of service. And that's why the founder chose the name, I believe, hospital, because we will deal with not only primary, but also secondary. We'll have a tertiary and even quaternary. In addition to that, we plan to have extension services to cover a large proportion of the population and also serve as a reference center to very many things. The hospital took about 2 years to build, and it was officially commissioned March last year, 2018. We started small by opening our accident, and we have progressed fairly rapidly to having very many departments now. Let me tell you first about the equipment of the hospital. We have some of the best, if not the very best, of the hospital's equipment that are available in anywhere in Africa. We will show you a radiology department, which is first class. We will show you the cardiac center, which we are going to start using in a few more days because all the things that we need are there now. We have a state-of-the-art laboratory services, which we run in partnership with a private organization. We have all the latest gadgets that are needed for wards, beds, and all the other things. We project that in this phase of development of the hospital, we will have a total of 400 beds. We have ancillary services like laundry, which is also state-of-the-art. We have biomedical services, biomedical engineering services. I did not mention that one of the things that is also good here is the dialysis center, renal center, where we're going to install ultimately 21 machines. 2 of them are already functioning, and we had a test run of a patient only yesterday, the day before. Now, because it's a brand new hospital, everything cannot be started at the same time. So we started with consulting for general practice so that anybody can walk in, pay a small sum of money to register, and then he can be directed to the next stage, which is the consultant clinic. That's for people who are able to walk in. For emergencies, they can come in through the accident and emergency center, and as I said, we show you, they come in, they are triaged. Those who need to go to the wards are sent there. Those who need temporary stay, there's a 20-bed place within the emergency room. We have a fully equipped pharmacy department with their own separate building. We've done brain surgeries, we've done spine surgeries, joint replacements. These are, for us, considered standard things.
For any university that's going to be a 21st century university, it must engage the use of IT and by extension ICT. And the university, while it's starting or commencing academic operation, ensured that all the classrooms are with adequate ICT facilities that are required for learning. Most of our classrooms are with interactive boards that is going to automatically enhance collaborative and problem-solving teaching that will make better impacts on our students. And by virtue of ensuring that the quality of teaching is enhanced, that one has automatically snowballed to ensuring a better research development. And the university, through this particular means, has been able to win a lot of medals, both at the local, national, and international level. One of such is the university developed a particular management software that's referred to as Astima Visor, and which won the local award, the national award, the Continental Award, and we went to United States of America, that's Seattle, to also compete with another 36 countries, whereby we emerged to be the 4th position. And not only that, but the engagement of ICT in the area of learning, we have put in place a university, which I can also call a unified information management systems, that will automatically capture the data of our students right from admission to graduation, which means it's managing the entire life cycle of the students. And also, we have also put in place a robust learning management system, whereby our students can easily, after the lecture hours, still go back to this platform, read over their notes, listen to the lectures taken by the faculty of the university, solve assignment, and at the same time send the solutions to the assignment back to their lecturers. So which means it has enhanced effective collaborative teaching amongst the students and staff members of the university.
We have about 6 college libraries. We run colleges system in the university, and every college has its library with a college librarian. Every requirement in the college, we have dedicated materials in all the library to meet the needs of the colleges. For example, we have the College of Engineering library, and that library houses all the materials for about 11 programs. We have mechatronics department, we have computer engineering, we have civil engineering, geology and all that. The same thing with the law library. We have the collections that has to do with the law library and all the researches in that respect. In fact, the library is like the light to all academic activities. It empowers the academia, the students. We walk around enhancing reading culture. We also go about getting resources for the researches. Everything that has to do with research has to be anchored, in the library. We have the print materials, we have the electronic versions, and every college library has its own electronic, the e-section, where the e-journals, e-books are all housed. We have several millions of e-books and e-journals. We also have prints to back them up.
I want this university to be ranked by the grace of God among the best 100 in the world before I say, yes, here I have achieved all I wanted. I'm fulfilled, but there's still something else, a little more for me to do.
Abuad is sure an ideal place for your ward. Abuad, providing the missing link.
Welcome to another knowledge-sharing episode of 30 Minutes with HR. 30 Minutes with HR is a partnership program between KUSI Consulting and the Association of African Universities. It is your premier human resource show for employers, employees, and job seekers. And as always, we have a special guest for you. Today, I am joined by none other than Mrs. Irene Asare. Irene Asare is a global transformational leader. She is also the Business Services Director at Talogana. We'll be right back and I will tell you exactly what the topic is for today's conversation.
Welcome to AAU Travel's Product Knowledge Series. And I'm excited to talk to you about our FIT tour service, where you get the opportunity to customize the product to your taste. And with that, we take your details, your destination you want to go, the date you want to travel. We're able to do it to suit your budget. So you don't need to worry about breaking the bank when you are traveling with this kind of service. You can visit us as the details are on the screen, as you see, or you can call us on the numbers showing on the screen. Let's plan your trip for you, and you know with AAU, we always let you feel the beauty of life.
AAU Travel feels life's beauty.
Welcome back. Today we are discussing adding value to businesses and transforming HR through mentorship. How exactly do industry professionals do this? Before I introduce you to our special guest, I would like to thank our sponsors. Thank you, AAU Travel. They actually got us here on set today. Thank you to Nationwide Medical Insurance. Be sure to give them a call for your healthcare needs. And of course, thank you, Hotel. We have been filming some of our episodes in their executive lounge. Now I am ready to get started. So, are you excited?
I am. I'm very excited.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, Irene Asare. So Irene, before we dig deep into the questions, I want you to share a bit with us about, you started a HR mentoring program for young professionals. And I think that mentorship program ties into today's conversation. So I kind of want you to give us some brief history about that.
Sure, I'm more than happy to. Thank you so much, Rita, for inviting me here today, and I'm really excited at the opportunity to talk about the mentoring program. It's a little bit of a story. I'm a little bit of a storyteller, and it really did have quite an impact on me as a person. So for a long while now, I've had lots of people contact me, can I be their mentor? And I was happy to do so. What was very interesting, my first mentor actually contacted me through LinkedIn.
Wow.
And I responded to his email, to his surprise. And I just felt that his email stood out. He needed some help at the time, and we're still in touch today.
Wow.
Since then, lots of other people had contacted me, and it got to a point where it was becoming too big for me to manage. And so I said to myself, what else can I do? So I speak to people on a one-on-one basis. I might speak to them every month. I wanted to think about how else I could probably impact society and people, and particularly the profession. So what was really interested in 2016, I was named the HR Practitioner of the Year by the Institute of Human Resources. And I felt like this is what I wanted to do, to give back. For me, it wasn't just about being named, but it was also about giving back to our profession.
Exactly.
And I'm super, super passionate about our profession. I feel that HR is critical to any organisation, and it has a prominent role in our organisations and in society. And if you think about it, people are our greatest asset. Without people, you know, we can't run a nation, we can't run a business.
Exactly.
So with that in mind, the mentoring programme was born. And I said to myself, I wanted something longer lasting. I didn't want to just call a bunch of professionals in for a day or two. And so I thought, let's make this 12 months. And actually what has helped me in my career is having a big brother or a big sister that looks out for you. And I call them the cheerleaders that cheer us on regardless of what we've done well or what we haven't done well, but they're interested in us as people. So from there, the mentoring was born. I was a bit nervous, if I'm honest, because I felt, my goodness, who's actually going to be interested in doing this for 12 months? How will I pair individuals? But I knew a lot of colleagues and friends of HR background, and I knew they were just as passionate as I was. So I reached out to them. I spoke to the Institute. Of course, they were very, very supportive. And the program was born. And we haven't looked back. It's been amazing, impactful, humbling. It's been a fantastic experience so far.
Good. I mean, and I've been following the program for a while. I think I was actually at the graduation for the first cohort. And I started thinking, myself and a few colleagues who were there just started thinking, how can we be a part of this? How can we be a part of this amazing movement? You know, because when we talk about mentorship, it's not a one-time thing. It's not something you do one day and then you think you've made an impact on someone's life. So I think that 1 year, that 1 year duration that you have to the program, it's awesome. And then there's also
I mean, I
follow-ups
wanted
as
to be very clear that it was very different from coaching. So I think a lot of people think about coaching and then mentoring, and I think it's the same thing. In reality, it's coaching for me is about immediate behavioural issues that you might have in the organisation or in your business today, and you need a solution and you need a fix. What I'm talking about mentorship is 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. You've developed such great relationships with that big brother or big sister or that senior or trusted advisor, as I call it, that you can call upon them, and they really had an impact in your life and in your career going forward.
And I have this saying where I say that a mentor can be a coach, but a coach cannot be a mentor. You know, and I strongly believe that. So when I started out my HR career, I still stay in touch with the gentlemen who I was lucky enough to work under. You know, so mentorship, I think, in our line of work is really critical.
And I think, Rita, people really underestimate what it's like to have a mentor. I have a lot of people, like I said, that contact me just for advice. I mean, it's very different getting advice from somebody who you trust and respect in your profession versus your best mate. I mean, don't get me wrong, best mates, we give great advice, I'm sure. But from a work perspective, someone who's seen it, done it, has failed, who's going to tell you, try not to do this, think about that, is a very different offering. And I think that for lots of people, and I always say that, you know, people who have been hugely successful, if you look back in their career, they've actually had a mentor. They've had someone that guides them along the path, and it hasn't always been smooth. And I'm sure that if it was smooth, we probably wouldn't need people. But because it isn't smooth and life is like that, it's good to have somebody who's on your side.
To guide you. I couldn't agree more. We will come back to mentorship, but before we do, I would like you to share some light on how industry professionals can transform their sector. What can they do to be change agents in their sector without disrupting the organizational culture. We talk a lot about culture, but I can't imagine it being easy to transform an organization.
Yeah, I've been in many transformational positions. I've done some very challenging and difficult things that hasn't been easy. What I say is a couple of things, is bringing people along with you on the journey, I think is important. Don't get me wrong, sometimes people will resist. It's human nature.
Of course.
We're aware of the change curve where you start, where you're in kind of shock and denial and anger, and then you come to acceptance and so on. I think the transformation process is similar to that. I think what's important about transformation is recognizing that there is a need to change. There is a need to do things differently. There is a need to transform. Then it is about, how do I identify the people that are going to help me move this change forward? Because I think if you and I agree, change is not easy.
No, not at all.
But it's funny, we're changing all the time. Sometimes we resist change and we come kicking and screaming. Sometimes we accept change and it becomes easier. Either way, we often find that the person we were 5 years ago is not the person we are today. We've gone through some process. So coming back to your question about how do we transform a place, an industry without disrupting culture, I challenge that. I think that you will disrupt some level of culture. The challenge is, can you do it positively? And can you do it to ensure that you do not negatively impact your business as a result? I think for a lot of people out there, there'll be organizations that need to change, don't know how to change, and will have to take the transformation step, one step at a time, in order to bring people along. So I think the organizational culture, as you go through that process, you will also change. What is important is the word that you used, disruptive. And making sure, I mean, nowadays we talk about disruptive, there's a lot new age technology, future of work, etc. And we talk about disruption. Disruption can be a good thing, but it has to be well managed.
Interesting. So how were you able to distinguish, and you can use any of the organizations that you worked with as an example, how were you able to come to that realization that, wow, change needs to happen? How does one...
There are different I mean, obviously, I'm not going to name an organisation.
No, definitely not.
But I would say I've worked in a number of multinational, great companies. And I say great companies because they perform well, they really look after their people. My current organisation, for sure. But there comes a time when you realise that things are not working. So, for example, it can be that you're hearing the same, let's say, issue over and over again. It could be, for example, we need better technology. And how do we, if we had better technology, we could do this in half the time and we could create efficiency. That is change, that could be transformation. I sometimes think that we think about transformation as this big, disruptive ball that has to come in and really kind of change everything around. You can do big change and you can do small change, and I've done them all. And what I would say in that regard, it is about just making sure that you identify what is the problem that you're trying to solve. I often say this over and over again, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And then asking other people. We don't always have all of the answers, but I can guarantee you the people that we work with generally do.
They have the answers.
And then it is about taking sometimes what seems like a really big issue into small, tiny chunks, and looking at these issues one step at a time. Before you know it, this big transformation, so for example, I have transformed an organisation that has lost 1,000 employees. The way I approached it, I didn't look at it and thought, my goodness, obviously we're going to impact people's lives. I mean, there's a lot of weight on you as a person. But then you have to say to yourself, I have to do this bit first, I have to do this bit, and I take it in chunks and I go through the process. And I think what's really important about our profession is being sensitive and empathetic about the environment and the situation, and the fact that anything that we do around transformation and change, for example, will impact people at some level.
Exactly. I was actually going to ask you about that because you've worked in South Africa, you've worked in the UK. That's what we mean by global transformational leader. So, were there anything specific based on the demographic that you think affected the way in which you transformed? Is there anything to be mindful of based on location?
It's interesting, but I always say people are people. That is what is interesting. We all generally feel the same things in many similar situations.
Okay.
But often when I'm in Ghana, people say, oh, in Ghana our culture is like this or it's like that. When I went and lived in South Africa, our culture is like this. Yes, there are slight differences, but that's history, that's context. But when you're talking about a transformation program at work that says requires you from tomorrow or from next year, we are now going to have this process, we're going to do it in this way, it's going to be different. It is going to be different, and people generally will react according to the change curve. What I think is important is culture. So if there are differences, is culture. So for example, I often say in the UK, I have been in a culture where it's kind of work hard, play hard.
Okay.
So when it's time to work, we work.
It's time to work.
And it is focus. And if I see someone in the corridor, I can kind of walk past you and nobody will say anything. In Ghana, you can't do that.
No.
You can't just walk past someone in the corridor.
Unacceptable.
But yet you might be the same person acting in the best intention, thinking that you're not offending anyone. So I think it is important in the countries that I've worked with, and I've learned very quickly, to be very sensitive about the environment. Just because, for example, I may have seen it and done it before, doesn't mean that the method in which I use is going to be the same method I'll use in Ghana versus the UK versus any other country on the continent. So I'm mindful about going into those environments, studying the background, the context, and then reflecting and then thinking about how are we going to do this process here.
You have to adapt to the culture or where you find yourself. I think for me, having moved to Ghana, that was probably one of the toughest lessons I had to learn, because in the US, UK, we have this rigid system, right? Somebody does something, you write them up, and then it leads to termination, and you come to Ghana and you realize those systems need to be a bit smoothed out a bit. You cannot stick to the same systems and structures that works abroad as here.
I just think the context is different.
Okay.
The context is different. On our continent, jobs are hard to find. In the UK, I'm saying employment will also be difficult to find, but there is more available and different options available. Doesn't mean that we don't follow the outcome if that's what's required. It's just that we have to think sensitively about how we go about doing this.
I agree 100%. So now my mantra for this whole year, I think actually since last year, has been adding value. Adding value means so much to employers nowadays, right? If we're going to get hired, it's because employers want to know what value can you bring to the organization. And I watched you lead a session on the role of the human resource business partner, and you actually spoke about adding value to organizations. And this doesn't even have to be a response or advice to just HR. It can just be a general response to job seekers, to anyone in the employee sector. How do you add value or create value for your organization? What do you do?
I think it's a really, very passionate about this particular part. I think what is important is, again, I think that we can't just think about we're employed, we have a job, and therefore I'm doing the organisation a favour.
Okay, but you get that a lot in Ghana.
Well, I think again, I wouldn't narrow it to Ghana. Actually, I think you have lots of different countries with lots of different contexts. I experienced a lot of interesting things in South Africa. So I think that sometimes we just think it's Ghana when actually, when you look wider, it's across the board. I think what is important in value is identify what does the business need. If you're coming to work on a regular basis and you want to do what you want to do, and you think what you're doing is adding value, but yet the organisation is saying, this is not what I need from you, I need X from you, How do you ensure that you create that? For me, creating value is being efficient, not making so many mistakes or learning from those mistakes, thinking ahead about how we can improve things, how we can be different. I always say, for example, if you're in a business, and let's say you're a business partner of HR or supply chain or finance or whoever, and they're having a financial conversation, and you're the finance person responsible, and you're not even invited to the conversation, you need to ask yourself, why is that? Why is it they're having a financial conversation, I'm the finance person, and I'm not there? So I think at that point, is it because you go into the meeting and you say nothing? Is it because when you have your contribution, it doesn't really add to the conversation? These are the questions that we need to ask. What is the business goals? What are the objectives? And what is my role in that? And how can I add value? It's just the same way as if you're an HR business partner or an HR professional. Your advice, your support, your guidance around particular processes, procedures, how to do things. If you're giving advice as an HR practitioner and your organisation is getting itself into trouble and ending up in labour courts or wherever or grievances, you've got to ask yourself, are you adding value to that organisation?
Because you could be doing more damage than
possibly
actually adding value.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that great insight. So we are going to take a quick break.
Sure.
And when we get back, we have another set of questions for Mrs. Irina Asare. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Treat yourself to a serene, plush, and unique experience. Check in at the AAU Hotel, East Legon, where every stay is unique.
Everybody wants to be the best at what they do for the people they're doing it for. That's why, after 13 years of providing you with top-notch healthcare nationwide, the market leader in the private health insurance industry is going the extra mile for you. Instead of hopping from pharmacy to pharmacy, now you get your prescription drugs delivered straight to your doorstep. We will restock your chronic medication on the regular, so you don't have to stress to keep track. We provide on-site clinics that offers you professional medical consultation from the comfort of your office. Enjoy these amazing benefits and so much more by signing on to Nationwide Medical Insurance today. Call us on 0800 222 222 or email us at info@nationwidemh.com. Nationwide, we go the extra mile so you don't have to. Join the healthcare family.
Welcome back to 30 Minutes with HR, a knowledge sharing program. Thank you to our sponsors yet again, Adansit Travels, AAU Hotel, and Nationwide Medical Insurance. Welcome back, Irene.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we have a few more questions for you, and then sadly we have to wrap up. All right, so back to mentorship, right? Which we started talking about mentorship. So how critical is the role of mentorship to transformation?
Super critical.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, I think again with mentorship, as I've talked before, it's a personal journey. I'd like to think it's a life-changing process that we put people through on the general HR mentoring program. But anyone who's had a mentor, you go through a life-changing journey. How does that link with transformation? We're in 2019. We have years ahead of us. The world is changing. You know, the things that we used to do, we're not doing them anymore. We're doing new things.
Exactly.
I mean, I always have this famous, wonderful kind of insight that everybody always talks about is, you know, for those of us who have children, for example, the jobs that they will be doing in the future are jobs that today don't exist. So, you know, they're going through their own education journey and they're jobs that don't exist.
Wow.
So for me, what is important is providing mentorship around your personal development, your personal achievement. Mentorship isn't about gaining more technical expertise. A lot of people that I meet already are qualified in X and Y. It is about, how do I approach this? How do I think about this? How do I deal with failure? I've just gone to a meeting and done a presentation and it was an absolute disaster. You know, I did this project and it wasn't as successful as I thought it was. How do I get an audience with my boss? And what do I say when I get there? For me, these are all skills that are required and needed if we are moving to a world where change is going to be really constant. A lot of people talk, for example, about the future of work and think, oh my gosh, the future of work, that means people are going to be out of roles. I disagree.
I do too.
I think that people will be in roles, but like I said, they'll be in different roles. So how is it that I start my career as a finance professional and maybe I'll end up as a creative person? I don't know. And therefore, how do I transition? How do I transform from one career to the next? I mean, for a lot of older people, they may have had one career or two or three. I'm told now you can have 4 or 5.
Of course.
So I think it's about the mindset, the skills, interpersonal skills development on how you deal with that change and transition.
I could not agree more. I think it's really about adapting because, like you said, change is constant, right? It's going to keep happening, but are you changing with the organization? As the organization is innovating and they're moving on to the future of work, right? What they perceive the future to be. Are you able to change along with the organization? Because those are the employees that actually end up keeping their job and evolving within organizations. If you cannot change, your job obviously becomes obsolete. So,
and I would add to that, Rita, that it's also about changing with the profession, right? So, you know, the profession, staying ahead of what is happening in your own profession. There are lots of things that are happening in the human resources profession, for example. There are a lot of things that are now happening in the banking profession, for example. There are lots of things that are happening in the data profession, the telecoms profession, for example. How do you ensure you stay with your organization and you develop and you grow? But how do you ensure that within that space that you are really moving and developing as well?
I think we were discussing how in some organizations now, I mean, they're using AI and they're also using virtual reality as a way to do interviews. So you're not meeting the candidates, right? Isn't that interesting? Okay, so thank you for sharing knowledge on that. Now, I kind of want you to share or give our viewers just a bit of your strategies, and of course myself, what strategies have you been able to deploy to be able to lead transformational change effectively in some of the organizations that you've worked for?
I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think you just need to, I always have people in mind. You know, I go through a stage where I process, my goodness, this could impact people, because fundamentally that's what I care about. So I have people in mind. I try to reason with and talk with my senior leadership just about what we're trying to achieve. And, you know, you have to ask why and how and what will it mean and when. I think those things are very important. And then if a change needs to be effected, remember I said change is not always negative, it can be positive. It's about, you will always get early adopters. You will always get people that will say, listen, okay, this is life, this is how things are, things change, and therefore we're going to help, we're going to support you. What support do you need, etc.
Okay.
I've often found that when you're doing a level of transformation, it's a challenge. You can be, you know, seen in a very unpopular way. But then sometimes when the change happens, people appreciate that at the end of the journey, but not whilst you're going through the journey. So I try to, in terms of strategies, I try my best not to take things personally.
Okay.
I know that as a HR professional, as a leader, an executive of a multinational company, Tullow, for example, you know, there are going to be things that you will do that won't always be popular.
Of course.
There are going to be things that you do that people very much appreciate. And I think that as a leader, you need to take all of them in hand. So I try not to take things personally. I do try to make sure I engage and bring people along. I do try to work with the line managers and the leadership to be able to ensure that we affect the change. If I'm working with a change team, obviously sometimes we're under a lot of pressure to get things done. I try to be empathetic, but realizing that we have a change to deliver as well. And the results of the change are just as important as obviously bringing people through at the same time.
So engaging the stakeholders, asking questions, and most importantly, keeping the people at the center of your decision making.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah. That's very good. I mean, so far you've been doing a great job at it. You're winning all these awards, getting acknowledged, and very well deserved. So I'm part of the HR mentorship program. I like bragging about that because I think it's really, really, really awesome. So what can we expect this year? It's a one-year journey.
It is, and I think it gets better and better each time. We've got some fantastic mentees. I think they're super hungry. They're excited about their change process. We had our first session with them last week, and they were wowed and excited and are probably a little scared at the same time. But you know, when you're transforming, changing, as I said, it's not always a comfortable journey. And what I've said to lots of mentees in the past is get used to being uncomfortable. So I think there's a lot. We are partnering with CIBS, so that's the China Europe International Business School, and so they're going to bring a lot of academic rigor to the program, and we're going to build in some financial skills as well. We've got mentors that we've worked with before, but we've got new mentors like yourself that are coming on. We have mentors that are super, super passionate about the development of people in this profession, and I'm very excited about that. And then obviously from a Tullow perspective, we are super excited. This is about capacity building. Some people say, why are we starting with the human resource? Why not?
That's where it starts.
Is where I say. And you know, we are also about our capacity building, our localization, our local content agenda. We're about, you know, oil and gas, but we're about making impact in Ghana as well. So we're very, very excited about this journey. And most importantly, the growth that we'll see, because eventually over time, if not already, we're seeing that it's really impacting the profession that is human resources.
Excellent. So if one wants to get in touch with Mrs. Irene Asare, how can they do that? How can we get in touch?
You can get in touch with me through LinkedIn, probably the best kind of mode of contact. And I'm generally always available and approachable and ready to kind of engage with people.
Excellent, excellent. So we have come to the end. This is always the saddest part, you know, because it's such great conversation. But I'm sure this is not the last time they're going to hear from you on these very topics. And I'm excited about the HR mentoring program. I'm excited about the mentees, the mentors, and it's just an exciting time to be in our be in HR, be in our sector. So,
but thank you very much. It's been a great opportunity.
No problem.
I just want to end by saying that, like you said, mentoring, it's from a Ghana perspective, this is the first of its kind. And I'm super excited for that. This is
Good.
about innovation, this is about development of people, this is about doing things differently.
Exactly.
And it's about starting with our human resource. So
Exactly.
I urge every practitioner to be super excited about this, support the journey. Let's try and impact as many people as possible. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. You heard it for yourself, right? So it's a very exciting time in HR, and unfortunately we have come to an end. Thank you so much for watching, and you can always get in touch with us with any of your human resource related questions. Thank you again to all of our sponsors, and we will see you next week.
Rwanda is a country that has transformed dramatically since the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, in which 1 million people died. The country is placed among the fastest growing economies, with a GDP growth of nearly 8% annually over the last decade. The country's ambitious goal is to transform Rwanda into a low middle-income nation by 2020, in which Rwandans are healthier, educated, and generally more prosperous. Because the country has a young population, strengthening higher education and research in Rwanda is a key pillar to this development process. Research-based knowledge is an important foundation for poverty reduction and sustainable development. The Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, is supporting research and higher education in developing countries. In Rwanda, this is being done through the UR Sweden program for research, higher education, and institutional advancement. Its main goal is to build research capacity at the University of Rwanda, UR.
The programme for UR is hugely important because UR, as the only public university in Rwanda, has a huge mandate for the country, not only to serve the country in terms of teaching and education, but also research and solving the problems of the nation and actually impacting on policy making, testing policy, but also providing evidence for policy that might come through from government.
In general, when SIDA supports research, we do that because we think it's fundamental that also developing countries have the capacity to investigate and research their own problems, to define their own problems, and to contribute that knowledge into the dialogue and the discourses that are being formed at the global level in the research fields.
The programme started in 2002, and its objectives have evolved over the years. The first phase was about promoting research, and the second phase was about increasing the research capacity at the University of Rwanda.
The current phase, the third phase, has an overall objective to increase the use and production of knowledge of international quality to support the development of Rwanda.
My research is about the assessment of development of antibodies in response to the virus, but also to find out other etiology of a viral etiology of other infections which are not diagnosed in routine in our country.
Try to know how we can handle big data, and this is like any sort of data that we have is being trafficked off internet. Wherever we go, we need data.
Research is important because it gives you a basis of making accurate decisions, especially when it comes to deal with the health of the population.
At the moment, the UR Sweden programme supports the training of PhD students, the main component, and the development of master's programmes, the library and the ICT infrastructure at the University of Rwanda. After their PhD studies, most graduates return to the UR to teach and do research. Research can help to find answers for problems that the Rwandan people are facing. With research areas ranging from agriculture to e-governance and from peace management to mathematics, the UR Sweden program is addressing the country's current problems and anticipating future challenges.
We think it should be continued until this development can perpetuate itself in Rwanda, and it will take some more years, but it sure will happen.
The University of Rwanda has come a long way to become a modern research-based university, thanks to the UR Sweden program. The UR is ready to take the next step and help Rwanda to accomplish its ambitious goal of becoming a middle-income country, transitioning from an agrarian to a knowledge-based society.
We'll just give maybe 1 or 2 examples of counterfactuals. This media, whatever it is, positive or negative, this is the voting pattern, positive or negative. If the media didn't do what they did or didn't do it the way they did it, maybe the voting pattern would have been the same. This is it. In absence of the media, would the voting pattern remain the same? So we can now attribute whatever pattern that emerged because of the presence of the media. Those of us in media studies, you know what it means. It's very difficult to prove that the president failed because of certain areas. So we need to do that. So that's why it's very difficult. Research is not an easy thing. So how do we go about it? That's what we'll be doing maybe after this, for the next 4 days. After that, we'll be dealing with this in terms of what can you do. Maybe you may need to combine methods to be able to prove that it's the media that led to the voting patterns. But the important thing is that it's not so easy to prove causality. One method can do it, but multi-method may do it better. So we are going to come back to that. It's okay. All right. So things to note about causality. And we are coming nearer to the issues. Yes. Okay, Fatah, please.
I think someone asked this question in the morning. Maybe Jessica or someone about how do we know when to stop? The boundary.
Yes. That's good. So this is a kind of a discussion of cause and effect. And that is also, it helps us, one, to know that research causality is about focusing on simple things. And those who are background will also determine the type of things we focus. For example, here, we can say that not maintaining the cells led to C failure. Then what led to C failure was a kind of leaky valve. And what led to whatever? What led to leaky valve was C failure. What led to leaky valve, wet surface was leaky valve. What led to someone sleeping was wet surface. What led to someone falling because the person slipped, and what led to injury was fall. But for us as scientists, all of us in this room, we may find a place in this study, and that's why we will remain as scientists. For an environmental scientist, what will he be interested in? He may be interested in wet surface and slippery. Maybe somebody in the environment. So the geographer there, maybe your interest will be just wet surface and the maybe leaky valve or whatever, slippery. For an engineer, his interest may not be this. His interest may be why do seal fail? For a civil engineer, why do seal fail? He started tracing the issues and he know that it's issue of maintenance. Am I right? Maybe for a nurse or somebody in health. His interest is in injury. Why do people have injury every time here? Because they do fall, and they begin to trace it. So that's why you mentioned it, Michael, about boundary. So every study will have a boundary. And that's why when we begin to describe the causal, do a causal diagram, we begin to bring these issues. You are not interested, that's why you cannot do everything. If you begin to do everything, it becomes what we call in Nigeria, bobonise. Nigerians will not understand. There's a drug, a local drug in Nigeria, that comes in a little cake this way. Inside it, there's everything. And that drug cures everything. If you have stomach ache, you take it. If you have headache, you take it. If you are injured, you put it there. Anything at all. If you have snake bite, you drink it. If you have maybe whatever.
There's evidence for that.
Huh? The evidence we do not know. But the understanding is that it cures everything. Research do not do that. It's difficult to have a research that does everything. So it must be focused. It cannot be if you are doing that. I tell my students once they come with their bogus research topic, I say this must be Bobonise research. Yeah, it's going to solve every problem in psychology, and I'm sure that your brain will not be able to cope with solving every problem in psychology. Why not select the little thing you can do and let us do it well, and you'll be able to speak to the international community. So that's actually what it is. Okay. So we have also started reflecting on slogans. Kemi started it. Then from what we have discussed so far, can we go back to that story of Sloman? Some of you that were in the model, I'm sure it was there are a lot of controversies there. Yes?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Evelyn.
I'm just linking this with what we did in the first session. In terms of challenges to critical thinking. And maybe I want to go to the example which was given, so that I'm looking at the cause. I'm looking at the cause variable. And there's challenge of common sense, where we say motivation and corruption in police. People know they're paid little money, that's why they actually what? Corrupt.
Yes.
So somebody said, but that is a common thing.
Yeah.
So at what point now do I bring the issue of the Z, the mechanism, to overcome the challenge of the common sense? Because for me, I'm just looking at that. Where we now have these, the mediating variables, you're saying the Z. If we handle the Z, then the Y, the X of motivation will not bring about the corruption.
Yeah.
How do I go about that? I'm hoping I'm not being so complicated.
No, not at all. I'll just explain this so that that's actually what is going on in the science world. We know about X, we know about Y, but the majority of the problem we have in the world, we don't know about the mechanism. If you pick any journal at random, published this week in any top journal, what they continue to push is that mechanism. Once you begin to bring mechanism, we are no more talking about common sense. Because nobody knows the reason why they are happening. But they know that police are corrupt. Or corrupt police officers take money. But why do they take money? Why not do other things? Once you begin to look deeper and deeper and deeper, you are challenging common sense. You are critically imagining. And it requires a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge. And once you begin to do that, you are speaking, you are filling research gap. Because A is known, B is known, they don't have the connect, but we do not know what lies in between them. And that's actually why we're doing research. And that's the simplest way to even contribute to knowledge. Once you start, and I also know, some of you who also, most of us are scholars who are interested in publishing, there is no way you can publish any study today without saying that this is the first study. That's the first thing the editors will hear. And you should mean it. It's not just maybe you read 2-3 papers and say this is the first study. What they do is just to refer you to 3-4 studies and they return it in the evening. I have done that long ago. So what it means is that yes, a lot of people have done this, that have related this, but this is the first study tracing the reason why these things are happening through this mechanism. They say yes, let's hear how you did it. And they can now begin to think about the methodology. Do you understand what I mean? So I think that's a good point, Evelyn, please. We appreciate that. So back to Sloman. Any reflection? Yes. Just one, so we can move on. We started with Kemi. Is there anything that we didn't cover again from Sloman? Yes. Yeah, please.
Except I don't want to comment on Sloman.
Okay.
Reflecting on the previous line, you had
before this, the one on how far do you go?
Yeah.
And now that we're also talking about research that is impactful on policy, I sometimes feel like a loss because I find that as researchers sometimes we overuse caveats in the name of limiting the research so much, such that even the evidence that you generate applies so narrowly to a phenomena and it cannot now be
generalized. Yes.
Exactly, and we do that because we're trying to just. I feel like we don't want to be poked so much, and so you find research that probably says things that. So this does not apply to this. It's not in the interest of this research to go into such and such a thing, and we do that in the name of we're limiting our scope so much. And I'm really curious about your comment on that in relation to when and where do we stop in terms of investigative causality.
Okay. I think we'll take that up later in Miss Method because we need you'll appreciate that. So we need to go deep, but we also need the breadth. So we are going to do that, and missing method may help you. Some method may enable you to focus. You may combine another method may enable you to generalize. So it's really important because if you continue to overfocus, you may also miss a lot of very relevant information. Okay. All right. So we are also noting points on causality. Next point to note on causality is that causation is not correlation. And I just quickly tell this story. Sometimes we could feel that correlation is causation. Most of the studies we deal with in our everyday writing is correlational studies. But along the line, once we finish the study, we begin to claim causality. Our recommendations, our writing will be mimicking those who did causal studies. And that's why we do not really go far. We'll be battling with editors, battling with policymakers. Yes, this is related, but it's not a cause. They will please continue to emphasize the limitation. That is not a causal study, it's rather a correlational study. This is just a story of a lion and a rabbit. And I'll just use it to show that causation may not be correlation. This is a lion who challenged, a rabbit that challenged a lion. He said, do you know we belong to the same group of animals? He said, what do you mean? He said, the way wild animals are scared of you is the way they are scared of me. That wherever I go, wild animals, our colleagues are always afraid of me. And the lion said, what do you mean? He said, can we do an experiment? They moved on a journey. And the first group of animals, they saw rabbit and they all disappeared. And rabbit turned to the lion. Didn't I tell you that the way they are scared of you is the way they are scared of me? Lion said it's not true. Say, can we move again? They moved and met the other group of animals. Immediately they saw the rabbit, they disappeared. They said, why shouldn't we be dining and enjoying ourselves together? We belong to the same folk. But I ask this class, is it the rabbit they are scared of or something else? But assuming that we are to run a correlation, the relationship between seeing the rabbit and disappearing, wouldn't you say that they are scared of the rabbit? So, but it's just more of association rather than a causation. And that's the type of things we'll do. And I'll give maybe another example with a typical spurious, what we call spurious correlation. Anybody in economics here? You're an economist. I'm sure you understand when we use the word spurious correlation. Let me explain when I'm sure, do you understand when I say correlation? Everybody here in this class understand when I say correlation? Correlation. Anybody that didn't understand what? Correlation means something is relating to another. A variable is relating. Appearance of one variable is occurring with the appearance of the other one. We'll say is a correlation. They are correlating. So this is a real data, not forged nor cooked. And if you go to this website, there are lots of these correlating things that are totally meaningless. Maybe we can also correlate here the number of participants in IITTA, correlating with the number of the number of students that failed in UI. The more you have people in IITTA, the more students fail in University of Ibadan. And you can correlate it over time. Every year that I have more people in IITA, you go to the University of Ibadan and check their result, they will fail more that year. So what it means is that if you want to have less failure, you should reduce the number of people that are coming to IITTA. The same thing here. You can say age of Miss America correlating with murder by steam, hot pepper and hot objects in the United States. This real data. And can't you see this? It's almost perfect relationship. So what it means is this for policy. And that's why correlational study is dangerous for policy makers. If you are to intervene here with this result, what are we going to do? We are going to make sure that before you win Miss America, if you want to reduce the death by this method, they should be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. The less they are, the better. But if their age continues to increase, the death through this method continues to increase. Are we seeing why correlation is dangerous for policymakers? And that's the type of studies we do, and we'll push it there. They try it, it doesn't work. You finish a correlational study and say one causes the other. And the politicians say, okay, let's try it. And they pump money. They pump money. The more they pump money, the less they produce. What it means is that you are not dealing with causation. You may be dealing with correlation. Huh? Okay. Another thing to note in causation is that the direction cannot be reversed. What do you understand what I mean by that? A cause will remain a cause, an outcome will remain an outcome. An outcome cannot cause cannot become a cause to the same outcome at the same period. You see our causal, the other thing will say this causes this, this causes this. The other one cannot cause this. Injury cannot cause fall. I mean, fall can cause injury, but injury cannot cause fall. You understand? So that's actually the problem. What they call in economics endogeneity. Am I right, Kemi? Endogeneity. Once you you must remove endogeneity when you want to talk about causality. And that's actually it. We'll give an example. Whenever the arrow goes back, then you almost at the starting, you have gone back to zero. I'll give an example of this study. Dollar, Fishman, and Roberta are World Bank economists, brilliant economists. And they did a very robust, interesting study. Today, I think it's almost 1,000 citations already, published in 1999. What were they doing? They're saying that more women in parliament leads to less corruption across country. And it was a very beautiful study. They used, and a very good study for that matter, they used corruption index in 100 and something countries in established democracies. And they looked at the number of women in each of these democracies. And they realized that where we have more women, the country will have less corrupt. And women were happy. And they started, and they started reading the paper and started citing the paper. More men started citing the paper. Maybe with annoyance that is not true, but they were citing the paper anyway. So what it means is this: for policy's sake, if we want to reduce corruption in Africa, what do we do? 60% women in parliament, 40% women in parliament, and we wipe out corruption. But it is a problematic because the arrow could go back. They couldn't trace how more women in parliament were leading to less corruption. It was just a kind of data. Beautiful, we're not doubting the method used, well-established method. But it could be that it's less corruption that led to more women in parliament. Because it has been theoretical possible that in less corrupt countries, there are chances of women coming to parliament. So it may not actually be that more women in parliament who are reducing corruption. It may be that in less corrupt countries, there are chances of women coming to parliament. Are we seeing the problem with causality? See, if you are not doing that, they are not establishing causality. If you don't begin to deal with this. I'll give my example also because it's not only Dolanco that did. This is my study. I published this study in Evolution and Human Behavior. I think it's rated number 2 in Evolution and Psychology. And I did it with 2 Poles and 1 American. And what were we dealing with? We are dealing with number of children and marital satisfaction in Southeast Nigeria. That study, we had to do it in Poland and in US. But I started the study first. So when we completed our study, we got something that's really intriguing, counterintuitive in a way, because what is known in literature is that more children leads to dissatisfaction in marriage, well established in literature. But when we got this, it was a kind of challenging existing knowledge. So, and we decided to try ourselves with that publication. And if just first place we sent it was Evolution and Human Behavior, and they published it. Why did they publish it? One, as I said, fertile started in the morning. It was counterintuitive. But is it actually number of children that is leading to marital satisfaction, or marital satisfaction leading to more number of children? In short, it's more theoretical coherent to show that number of children should lead to more children, rather than number of children leading to marital satisfaction. Marital satisfaction should lead to more children for obvious reasons. Those who are satisfied with their marriages are more likely to stay with their husband or their wife. Am I right? And the more they stay with their husband, the more they do something there. And the more they do something, the more they produce children. Am I right? Is it not more theoretical coherent? Those who are dissatisfied with their marriage are not likely to stay with their together. They are not going to be happy. And you know what happiness can do? Yes. Okay.
Did you consider the economic service?
Yes, that's the next thing I wanted to say.
Why do I raise that, Prof?
Yeah.
Because in a society where people are more poor, they have more children. Not because they're satisfied, but because the lights go off early, and that's the only thing they can do.
Is to go to that.
Okay. And then maybe another alternative is that number of children is not does not lead to marital satisfaction, but marital tolerance.
Okay. 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 And that's why the study will not complete. We didn't complete this study here for obvious reasons. Evolution and human behavior will not publish this study without us taking care of that. We'll factor those things in. We'll control for wealth, control for all other things that we were thinking of in the analysis. Before we also found out that after controlling for all these possible explanations, we still find that number of children were relating to marital satisfaction. But what I'm saying theoretically is that it could be the reverse, could be the case. It could be that it's the marital satisfaction that are creating more children, rather than more children creating marital satisfaction. But once you do a correlational study, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know which one is contributing to what. And that's why we need something like causality. In short, because we didn't settle with this. In 2000, we continue with this study. And we did it in 33 countries. We replicated this study in 33 countries, in Nigeria, in Ghana, Kenya, in Australia, in China, in US, in Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, in 33 countries. And when we did this in 33 countries, what did we find? We found no relationship. It was published in 2007 in Frontiers in Psychology. And that's what it means, is that there's something more to marital satisfaction than just number of children. And that's just like what we're saying. What it means is that number of children may not be the cause of marital satisfaction. And marital satisfaction may not actually be the cause of number of children. But we have not traced that angle, because if you need to do that, we need to start a causal study and to be able to trace the mechanism. What is marital satisfaction doing? Or what is number of children is doing to be able to produce number of whatever marital satisfaction. Once you don't do that, then you have some issues. And that's actually what we mean when we talk about causality. And that's why mixing method may be the major solution to it. Yes.
Just, I'm curious. So what number of children did you find
that increased
marital satisfaction among the Igbo?
Okay, maybe as a summary, because this is not the focus of this, but maybe to give you an idea, maybe I will share the paper later. What we found out that it's just, you know, in normal regression, you don't not bother about the number. You just regress number of children with the whatever, with number of marital satisfaction. But to realize that it continued, but it plateaued for women after 4 or 5 children, and it started dropping for women. But women continued. It was more linear for men than for women. So whatever it is, we gave some interpretation to it. But whichever way, what it means is that those who have 0 are less satisfied than those who have 1. Those who have 1 are less satisfied than those who have 2, and it continued in that order for it to be significant.
But for the men, is it in a monogamous relationship, because you said it continued, or in a polygamous one, because you could have started with wife number 1, you know, and they had 5 children, and she's done with it, and it continues with bride number 1.
Okay. Okay, that's another thing for another day. Because we thought that after publishing that in 2017, we have rested discussion on this. Because once we realize that in doing in 37 countries, it didn't make any meaning, what it means that there's nothing dealing with. But now that we have something to study, we thought that we have rested that case and nobody should be talking about marital satisfaction, number of children, as far as science is concerned. But that means we need more questions. So that's it. That's what study is all about. So can we just go back to typical causal diagram? Typical causal diagram, we mentioned it. You know, what you just need is just X leading through mechanism to Y. But we needed to do this for you to realize that there could be background variables, but they are not of your interest, but they may also help you to build your case for X. Those possible things that may have led to X, where we are. But there's some issues at the background. Poverty is the cause of this, but something led to poverty, but that's not your focus. But you need to acknowledge either through writing to...
the stamina of the man that kicked the ball.
Oh yeah, that's that. Yes, something like that. So, but there's also possible other confounding variables, other possible variables that may also lead to Y apart from your own. Am I right? And that's why those of us, people think of dealing with control. You need to control them. Because if you don't control them and the Y is still there, you may not actually be sure that it's X that is leading to Y. You understand? Just for illustration purposes. Yes, Fatai, please.
I think this helps us to address Latanwa's observation that are we heading towards a monocausal design?
Yeah. Yes. Fatai, I think, yeah. So this is actually what it is. It may not be, you recognize that there are some other factors, but we need really to have a robust, but that doesn't happen just because we wish to. What it means is the design must be watertight. The design you are using must be watertight. And that's why in every study, even for policymakers, what they need to do is how do you produce the evidence? It's even more for scientists. That's why every science is talking about methodology, especially when we want to produce empirical whatever. They continue hitting on methodology. How do they arrive at that? So that's it. Okay. So let's also go to this and just demonstrate with one example. This was done by, assuming that we decide to look at how school feeding leads to academic achievement. School feeding is our X, and academic achievement is our Y. That's our outcome. But we feel that school feeding doesn't just lead to academic achievement. It's doing something. Either it's raising students' motivation, or making them to attend more. You understand? If you know you are going to eat food, and it's guaranteed, you will have to go. Am I right? Okay.
Because if you don't go, you'll be hungry.
Then then you may also, in the process of eating food, you may also learn more, and academic achievement may improve. Also, motivation to learn may be higher. So we are not saying this is exhaustive, but these are hypothetical issues. That's what we try to trace. Once you correlate this and find out that there is a relationship, you are not speaking to anybody. They want to know what is school feeding doing. Because if it's not doing this, then it may not be actually what is contributing to academic achievement. And that's, in those of us in quantitative, that's what they do. What they do is to model this as a mediator, and model this and test if there's a relationship. For us, whether you are doing it quantitatively or qualitatively, you need to ask people, go to where there is school feeding, and maybe try where there is no school feeding, and see what the type of things. Are they attending school more? You can ask them more questions. Are you not happy with your school? Whether it's true or descriptive or quantitative, it doesn't matter. But the important thing is that you are able to use a method to unravel this. So we are not a believer of this. The family background may also be related to school feeding and others. And maybe I use just one example of school feeding may not make any meaning to some children. It may make to some others. I'll give you an example with my daughter. When we moved to Germany, my last kid was 5 years plus when we moved. And he stopped almost going to school because they were giving them food. Because in Germany, you don't start any serious school work till 6 years. But she was under 6. She went to school for about a week, 2 weeks, and returned one that said she's not going back again. Once the reason, said they don't know anything here. Because she had started kindergarten before we left, and they started writing and reading. So there they were not writing, they were not reading. I said, what do they do? Say they know only 3 things. They sleep, they eat, and they play. And I said, why? I said, she doesn't want to go again. So for her, school feeding was totally nothing for her. You understand? It was not making any sense. In short, for her, it was negative. So what they do there is early in the morning. And do you know, we eat 3 times. There. Even if you want to eat more, they will ask you to go. There's a place we go out to eat if you want to eat more. So distracting. So that's actually the context that we need to build a background. In short, almost we had to, at a point the school wanted her to move to primary school. And we sent her, maybe erroneously, we went to, maybe it's traveling like from here to Lagos to do a school test. And after that, she passed up, but the last person that assessed a child psychologist just quickly noticed that she was not up to 6. She should be 6 in November, but that was in August. And she said, no, that is not allowed. Who sent her? Then we explained to her what happened. She said, it's not a problem, that we should go back. By the time we returned the following day, they have already called the school on what to do. So they started giving her some things to write, whether they're writing it for Renee's sake. And after a week, she came back and said, those people have changed. They have started writing something. So that's actually why background is very important. So it will also good to mention this. This may be what we call moderators, or whatever, those who deal with. Because class size may also, this may work, may lead to academic achievement, but class size may become a serious matter. Maybe class size may change the outcome. They understand? So if the class size is less and the school feeding is there, maybe the outcome will not be the same. So it's something to look at. Why we did this is not our focus, but just to know that they exist. And they are all contribute to building a robust,
Thank you very much. I have a question.
Okay, please do.
Okay, given all this A, B, C, X, Y, Z, when you are doing research, trying to situate this, that means that we should pay a lot of attention to Z.
Yes.
That's because when you were explaining earlier the X, Y, Z, the boy that killed him, I was looking at it that, can we say Z is what gives X the power to cause Y? So that means that we need to give a lot of attention to Z. More like, I want to really get.
That's it. You have summarized it. That's just some what we are discussing. This mechanism is so important to us, to policymakers, to researchers, because X may be known, Y may be known, and we have over years understand that this causes the, but we don't know the reason why they are causing it. Once you know the reasons why they are causing it, then we can have policy intervention at this point. What it means, school feeding leads to, but if it's not leading to motivation, it can't produce this. So what do we do? We need a school feeding that produces motivation. If there's a school feeding that's not producing regular attendance, then we can't achieve this. You understand? So you have just summarized our thinking around causality. Yes. Okay. Okay. So just a kind of more explanation on this. We started with understanding what it means, but we can use maybe the words. Some of us in quantitative can relate with this. Those in qualitative can relate with this. We can call it maybe independent variable. We can call it the causes predictors. We can call it whatever, causal factors. The mechanism can be intervening variable, can be mediating variables. That thing that lies in between the cause and effect is the power, as you said. The cause gives something that generates the energy for it to produce the final outcome. What is left for us as researchers is to be able to trace those things and be sure that this outcome is actually a product of these mechanisms. So that's actually what I mean. So I think we can move on. Do you have any question, please? Yes, Norma.
Does it mean that the moderating variables are not mechanisms?
They are not. Or do you think that? They are not. Okay. But a mechanism may be mediators. You can use the word mediator. You can say mediating variables. Moderators are something else. They are variables when they are there. The effect of the cause and effect may not be the same. It may be higher or lower. For example, we looked at class size the other side. Assuming that this class size, their school feeding in a smaller class size may produce higher level of motivation than school feeding in a large class. Of course. Moderating variable is not causing this. It's not rather causing this, but it's there. As it's there for you to be interested in it. For those of us in quantitative science, you model moderators to see if this result will change for two categories of people. There's school feeding in one place. There's school feeding in another place. But the achievement is not the same for these two groups of people. That's a moderator. Why is it that this school feeding in one place, producing motivation, the same motivation in the two places, but one is higher, the other one is... It can be a contest. Maybe in Kenya, there's school feeding, but it's not producing high motivation. But there's school feeding in Nigeria is producing high motivation. You can ask yourself questions. Why? It's something, food for thought. But it's not actually what is producing the effect, but it's changing the outcome a bit. So you will become more interested in that moderator. So that's actually what we mean. So, but in building your model, you may not bother so much about this. You can use that as design. You can design your study to recognize that. You know that school feeding size will affect it. You design to check, either to mix up, study the one in large class and study the one in big. If they are producing the same effect, you say, okay, it's not a problem for me. So it becomes a kind of, it helps in interpretation of your results. Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. Yes.
The moderating variables.
Yes.
I'm trying to look at the issue of context.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that not speak to the problem you raised earlier about the claims that most researchers make over here?
Yeah.
That because this has been done there, has not been done here. That's why we are setting out with this research. So if it's possible that context can influence outcome, does that not support that claim?
No. We are not against the claim. Nobody is against the claim, but we say we should claim with caution. We just claim that something doesn't exist, that human beings are the same. That when we cut people's leg in Nigeria, there will be no blood. You know that when you cut people's leg, there will be blood. It's established in Europe, and you start cutting people's leg here, and assuming that there's not going to be blood, you are doing no science, because you know that human nature is already established that way. There's no need repeating it. But there's something that may happen. Maybe our tolerance to pain may be different. You can decide also to look at level of tolerance here and level of tolerance, because you know, maybe because of culture, you need to build our culture because we have been insulated from pain or have been exposed to pain more than others. But there's something that will make meaning. The context should make meaning. But if it's something that doesn't make any meaning, no, it's a kind of doing things that along the line is not speaking to anybody. You are not producing any new evidence. That's just what we are saying. Context matters a lot. Matters a lot. Oh. Yeah. Even our tolerance to pains, to anger, they are different based on context. You see someone maybe in some part of the world, you little shock, the person will commit suicide. But somewhere, no matter the way you deal with the person, he's even smiling. You understand? And at a point, they say Nigerians are the happiest people on earth. And people who are doubting. It may not be because things are good, but because their resilience level are high. And they may have developed it over years. Yes. Okay. All right, so can we quickly look at causal notions? You know, we have asked few questions. We are almost through with this session. We are going to start off hands-on, trying ourselves with our own concept note to see if we can build a model that recognizes causal factor, the mechanism, and outcome when we come back in the afternoon. But before we do that, let's try some of the questions we raised earlier by looking at causal notions. Causality can come in different ways. We can have very simple causal relationship, cause and effect. Some of them may be more complex. Some of them may also be the one that Stephen raised, a causal factor. Some of them may be multiple. So we can just look at them briefly to see some possibilities in cause and effect relationship. Okay. So we can have this. Conjunctures. In conjunctures, two or more causes can act together to produce an effect. Can you see, we're starting with you, Stephen. This is not just one factor, A causing B. It's possible. But there are some issues that require that two factors or three factors needed to be there to produce an effect. So if any of them is not there, the effect may not be felt, or at least in the intensity that is happening. So maybe I just give example to just this. We will look at decision making, free mental care, community sensitization, and increased access to referral. Assuming that there is no default decision making, access to referral may not be there. Assuming this paper was done by one of us, Susan, in our joint project we did in different parts of the country. She anchored that one in Kenya with his colleagues. I did one with Fataya and Ayo in Nigeria. So one of the studies came this way. So they realized that free mental health care will lead to increased access. But if you remove free mental care and allow only community sensitization, no matter how long you continue to sensitize people, but it's not free, you will not see anybody. Do you understand? But in the combination of this factor, you can see the combination, they are not individual, they are not affecting this individual, but they needed the three to produce an effect. That's what we mean by conjunctural factors. I think it happens a lot in social sciences. One factor may not actually produce an outcome. For example, poverty. What leads to poverty may not just be economic, whatever, the GDP of a country. Maybe a country may be rich, but it's not also, the poverty is still high there. So it may be something. Maybe leadership may be important. So some other thing may also, maybe fertility of the land may also be important. So that even if they don't have money, or maybe a global or national level, individual will be able to plant something and get food and eat. So there may be a combination of factors, all of them present before poverty can reduce. So something like that. However, this is just another one. This is just an explanation of the other one. You can see the picture here. This is a kind of an accident. This person was not careful. The other person opened whatever, and this one was also running. So with this, we were looking sideways. But assuming that one is correct, his chances that accident may not happen is there. Assuming he's looking, but the door was not open, he can pass. Do you understand? The same thing with what we are seeing here. Maybe what led to the accident that this driver was riding at very top speed. There's elephant crossing. There's also brake failure, and there's incoming vehicle that led to that. Because assuming that the high speed, but there was no brake failure. Even if the elephant is crossing, you can match the brake and get it. Am I right? It's just theoretical. Or assuming that there is brake failure, elephant is crossing, speed driving, but there's no oncoming vehicle, you can swap and continue moving. Do you understand? So, but on its own. There's no economic recession, there's no corruption, but there's war. Tore the country apart. You can see high level of poverty. On their own, corruption can be the major source of poverty, especially in Nigeria. There's no war, there's no economic recession. There's money everywhere. The amount of petrol, whatever, petroleum we will sell in the international market every day is enough to develop the whole of Africa. So there's no problem with economic recession. What Nigeria produces a day is enough to take care of the whole of Africa, and even more. But there's still poverty. And then maybe only corruption that is single-handedly producing this effect. Okay, all right. There's also what we call power dependence. In power dependence, maybe little explanation here. Well, it's just a cause that has a kind of enduring structural effect. Something happens, and over time, major other happenings continue to follow that path. In short, when we say you are power dependent, it means that one person follows here, another person follows here, another person follows here. It may be the longest route, but people just felt that that's the best way to follow. And some causes will endure that way. I'll give just one example to show it. Something like this. The development of typewriters in the have really, this has endured over time, including our telephone, and nobody knows when it will stop. So why should all technology follow that path that started with just simple typewriter? When the electronic typewriter came up, you followed it. The computers again followed it. And almost so the keyboard are also having the column LKJ or whatever. Do you understand? So kind of a power dependent. We can change it in even a better. We have not even tried another part that didn't work. But it has continued to. Maybe another innovation may even be better. Even maybe in our own way of reasoning. This one is even difficult because there's no pattern in the keys.
QWERTY.
Yes.
It's called a QWERTY keyboard.
Yes.
So if you put your hands
yeah.
there, the way you type is the way you do it here is the way. The way they arrange the keys over here.
Over there. So but I was saying why? Why not just do it even A, B, C, D so that it becomes easier? You understand? So so that even when you don't remember, you should be able to guess where A should be. But it has failed. And that's what we mean by power dependence. Most developmental strides, even our thinking also follow that kind of power dependence in a way. Okay. All right. Then causal chain is the last we're going to deal with. Causal chain in terms of, it could be very straightforward. Democratic status leading to quality service delivery. Simple. That's the simplest of the causal relationship we are dealing with. But we'll say that this doesn't tell us the stories. But it can also solve. Most of the correlational studies will do this with this kind of thing. But it can be more than this. It could be this, leading to this, and leading to this. Simple is simple, but it's indirect simple chain. Some of them may be more complex than this. It could be series of events. This is a study I did with Fatai and Ayo on democratic status and service delivery in this part of the world. And we realized that democratic status led to pressure of government to perform. Because when we finished the study, there was a background. When we finished the study, we felt that a democratic elected local councils should be doing better in service delivery, security service delivery, in terms of at least at perception level, than those that are appointed. But when we got the result, we saw something opposite. Those that were appointed were perceived to be doing better. Then we decided to do more studies to unravel the mechanism. Why are they perceiving these people to be doing more? Realize that in democratic elected councils, there's pressure to perform by the citizens. And this pressure to perform makes them to create large, sometimes unrealistic projects, security projects, vigilante. We are going to pay in every ward. We are going to employ 100 vigilante groups. We are going to buy vehicles for them and this. They started the bet, was not sustainable. So these projects failed. And the people became more dissatisfied and the perception was low. So this is a kind of understanding the mechanism. Why are they really perceiving this local council as less? So this is it. This could be more complex. We could trace them from two major areas. Maybe pressure to perform and expansion of government institutions, do you understand? All leading to poor service delivery. So it could be that. And so if you open any journal article today, especially those ones dealing with models and quantitative, this is the type of figures you see every time. And they need something to do that. You can use one method. Those who are doing a lot of structural equation models, regression or whatever. You can also do stories. You can use stories to tell about how these things are happening. Our own, you use stories. You use regression at the first stage, but you use stories to tell what is going on. So we are not saying it's only one method. Don't say here, you are here. It's only for those that are quantitative that can do this, please. Okay, just like the Sheikh story. I will trace here and you could see Sheikh did this and this and this. But we know that this is the one that was valid, was proved. This one would have happened, but it never happened. Do you understand? Am I right? Okay. Okay. So just a kind of narrative of that. And the individual is neglected by his parents. He comes to destroy others, and as a result has trouble maintaining friendship, has trouble in school, and eventually gets addicted to drugs. To support his habit, he starts selling drugs and is ultimately arrested and committed for drug trafficking. We're just looking at how can parents' neglect leads to drug trafficking. You can see the chains of events that actually resulted in that. So once you just child neglect leads to drug trafficking, it will not make meaning to many people. They need to know how is it actually producing that. Because you can do some studies and isolate these things, but they may not play out that way. Okay, so we may not have this. When we return, we can go about doing that. So surely we have almost eaten into our break time. But we can share in 1 or 2 minutes if we have anything to ask or what you need us to clarify, and we can go straight for our lunch break. Yes. Okay, Lillian, please. Okay. Did anybody get it, please? Did anybody get equifinality? Can you explain? Yes, Evelyn.
Yes, thank you so much. Excuse me. When it comes to business research, you use this a lot. Now, each of those parameters are taken as individual causes.
Yeah.
And they can affect poverty individually without combining any of them.
Yes.
And their effects will always be different. So the effect of economic recession on poverty might either be higher compared to the effect of war, compared to poverty, or corruption on poverty. So each of them stand as individual IVs or causes, which are not dependent on any of this. So each of them is like, I always want to use it, if you permit me.
Yeah, use it.
We are 3 of us here. We have Daniel, we have Lynn, and also we have Fina. So Fina is the person who wants to see her character. So when she interacts with Daniel, the way Daniel affects her is totally different. is not dependent on my interaction. And my interaction with that will actually produce a different character, which is not dependent on the lean. And the same will apply to lean. The way lean affects is totally different, which is not contingent on our interaction here.
Good. Leland, do you appreciate what you say? Yes. So the difference between this and conjunctural is that in conjunctural, anyone that is not there may lead to this not happening. So the other one is dependent on the other one to happen. If the person is careful, even if you have opened the door, you can navigate. But the other ones are happening whether they're there or not, it will still produce an effect. Like as he said, for her in economics or political science or whatever, if you are doing something like regression, you bring all the factors to play. But you can decide which of the factors is contributing more than the other. But they're all contributing. But they don't need a combination. In the other one, you need a combination. Anyone that is not there may lead to the effect not happening. So which is different from equifinality. What it means is that they're all equal factors. They're all factors in their own right. That's it. Yes? Yes? The next slide. Okay. Very last. Is it what? Okay.
The narrative.
This one. Now, this boy who is neglected, you see the neglected and ends as drug trafficking. Now, the story in between, is that the
Z. That is the Z, the mechanism. The mechanism.
The mechanism.
Yes.
Now, is that is our Z?
Yes.
Which is also not
You can have Z1, Z2, one leading to another. Yes.
I wanted to connect that.
Okay. That's the Z. What we did here is to tell a story without a diagram. It can be through a story, it could be diagrammatic, it can be done in different ways. This is just one way of understanding these mechanisms. So for some of us who are not interested in using models or using figures or using diagrams, you can tell the story. And it's now left for you to develop a method that can help you to tell the story. So that's it. So you shouldn't just be looking at neglect and child trafficking or trafficking in drugs. Look at the reasons why neglect should be able to do that. And you can use through your ethnography, phenomenological approach, you can still achieve this. But it requires skills. Yes.
I'm just looking at this with the diagram that you put on C.
Yeah.
In direct relationship.
Yes.
Neglect leads to distrust, which leads to troubled friendship, which leads to this. Then eventually you see the drug trafficking, and so I'm actually looking at it with the C, where you put the chain of the four.
As soon as we have opportunity of giving, you know, I promise that I'm a repentant person. If not, I'm a repentant person, I would have given you assignment on this. Maybe to convert this to a diagram. But you can do that on your own. When you get this slide, you can just take time and know if you can depict this thing in diagrammatical form. So you can make more meaning. Huh? Okay, all right. Thank you. I think we have been wonderful this morning. Yeah.
Quickly, we want to have a brief discussion with one of our facilitators, and he is an organizational psychologist from the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, and he has been facilitating one of the modules. We'll briefly have a short discussion with him and find out what has been happening throughout the sessions and what we should expect in the next few days to come. Prof, you're welcome to AAU Television.
All right, thank you, Sam. I'm really happy to be with you this morning.
Great. Pedal keeps surprising us all the time. We were here some few months ago talking about pedagogical leadership. This time around, we are back to Ibadan and we are discussing advanced or multi-method policy-oriented research. Why do we need such a discussion or such a training in a period like this?
Okay. PASGA has really been pioneering a research revolution in Africa. And I'm privileged to be associated with this for the past 6 years. I was a trainee sometime in 2013, 2014. And since then, I've joined the facilitating team as a faculty member. And the reason why we continue to think about research is that research will surely drive the African development. And social science has a lot of role to play is not just about technological breakthrough. It's also about adopting technology. It's about changing the way we do things. It's about changing the attitude of our leaders, changing the attitude of citizens. And social science has a lot of role to play in this regard. So building capacity of African scholars to be able to do groundbreaking research and research that contributes to development is very important. And I think that's what PASGA is trying to do, and that's what we have been doing so far.
Great. So in the rooms I was there yesterday, you could see that it was a mixture of entry researchers, or let's say early career researchers, and some astute researchers as well. Now, what is so different for them?
Okay, I think it's a very, very good combination. This intergenerational mix is really important. We have very seasoned, experienced researchers, and we have also very young researchers, some of them starting their PhDs, so which is good. Because what we have realized in the past is that when young scholars come in here, they're excited, they are amazed with the new things they're learning, but the major challenge is that they find it difficult to also practice this, especially when they're still developing. So what it means is that we needed also to have people who have also experienced researchers to also understand what is going on, to retool, because the short thing is that they need to be doing it right. We need to do it in another way, because African research is really not where it's supposed to be. As you know, we are contributing less than 1% of research output in the world, and what it means, we are not doing good research. We need to do better. So both experienced and less experienced researchers needed also to retool, so that we begin to produce research that's evidence-based. So having this kind of mix is good. The experienced one can share the experiences with the upcoming ones, while the upcoming ones also could learn, and they can have a kind of a critical mass of scholars who will understand what it means to do research that will produce evidence that will influence policy or inform policy.
Great. And so what are some of the models that the participants will be studying within the next 14 days? Okay,
here we have majorly 4 modules for the advanced research design, and we have another 2 modules we'll take as electives. The 4 modules in advanced research design, we started yesterday with designing social inquiry, and that is actually focused on designing good research work, which is very important at the basic for doing good research. So we started and we'll do that for 4 days. After that, we are going to take on mixed method research, using both quantitative and qualitative research, and combining that to produce research that is really valid, evidence-based, that can give them confidence to speak to policy actors, and as well publish good papers that also will be competing with papers coming from other parts of the world. We also have the critical policy engaged research as the 3rd one, and that will be about looking at how research can speak to policy, how policy can also speak to research, and if we can have a kind of a mix, that's what that model will be dealing with. Then the last one will be just a 1-day module on ethics, because we feel that ethics is very important, especially for African researchers, because of the challenges that we have here. We feel that ethics should be at the base. So with that, they'll take elective. Either they do a gender social science research, or they take on impact evaluation. So they'll be running concurrently, so no participant will be expected to do 2 at the same time. But they have opportunity of doing that later, maybe next year, when we'll do another round of this training. So we'll continue to have 1 or 2 method modules in each of our deliveries. So that's what we're expecting for the next 14 days or so.
Great. So you're absolutely right. Africa contributes less than 1% of the knowledge economy globally. But my question is, how do we build a very robust research system in African universities and Africa as a whole to be able to kind of meet or bridge the gap that we have?
Okay, I think what is obvious is that African universities are not actually focusing on training people to become researchers. So there is a disconnect. They want to have PhDs that are talking about numbers or PhDs produced, but it's not actually what we should be emphasizing. We should be emphasizing quality PhDs, because it's important to train. So what I feel a way out is also what PASGA is doing. Beyond the training on research method done by university, that should be a kind of this kind of training, maybe a short training, maybe summer schools in different universities, clusters of universities that can have summer schools for upcoming researchers when they learn rudiment of research as part of their PhD training. So I think it's very important, because once they develop the skills, they will be able that are comparable and competitive, because we have the same space. Okay. Top journals look for top scholars, and they also publish good research. So we need that space, and we cannot occupy that space if you are not doing also good research like others. So that's one. And also we need also to produce research that will inform policy. Exactly. And we cannot produce research that will inform policy if the evidence are not watertight. What it means is that if you depend on such kind of evidence, policy will miss policy actors, or policy makers, policy actors, and that's underdevelopment. So I think that's where we are. That's why.
Right. So you have been a facilitator for some time now. What do you make of the entry level of the participants when they come in? Are there times where their whole knowledge has been distorted? I know before they come in, they bring in concept note. When you compare their entry point to their exit point, do you see any differences in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience that they have acquired?
Yes, I think it's expected that they come here with a lot of information. Some of them are relevant, some of them are important for them to start off, but we have this is a 10-day program, but it's something, a turning point for many people. It was a turning point for me, and it has remained a turning point for many scholars, because you have been doing it, but we have not been getting it right. So you come here, you are exposed to real research issues, and they always go back overwhelmed, and they acquire a lot of knowledge, but it's really what to take a little bit step by step. Yes, there you can see that I have started well, but every day you can see a kind of an improvement. Some of them came here with quantitative background, very difficult to shift. Some come with qualitative background, they're also very difficult, but they begin to see the relevance of each of the methods. By the time they come back to talk about mixed method and others, they are already exposed to knowing the value of combining methods. And happy and emotional also about this program. As after my exposure, I was allowed to participate as a facilitator, and I have done something that I feel is really important to me. So what I do here is that you can see I have about 4 of my faculty members here, and the 2 will be joining in the methods, in the electives. So I have a grant. I have instituted a grant in my faculty to support faculty members who attend this program. You know, this is the first time it's holding in Nigeria. It was in Nairobi, and even when they are supported by PASGA, they also find it difficult to pay their flight ticket. So what I've done is also to use the little resources I have to support them to pay their tickets. I know it's not enough for them to do that, but at least it gives them confidence that what we are doing is a serious issue. Because if it has impacted on my own career, I believe it will also impact on them. And so far, we have gotten almost 10 scholars from my university attended this program, and they continue to give testimonies how we have changed, the program has changed them. And my colleagues have also seen the transformation in these scholars. Maybe my own personal, I can share my own personal experience. Okay, I came in here as a participant in 2013 to 14, okay. And after that, my scope changed, and I will also say my career changed. Okay. I started writing better proposals, and from there I was able to apply for Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship in Germany. And as you know, it's one of the most competitive fellowship, and also one of the most, I would say, life-changing fellowships, because once you have a Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship, it's for life. You are supported throughout your life career as a researcher. So I got it, and I spent the 2 years in Germany. And they sponsored not only myself but my family. So we spent 2 years at the University of Munster, where I also did some few good studies, and got some of my few papers published in very, very good journals. So I returned back to build them, give them the necessary